even though it feels original, there's just nothing that really just made it stand out for me, which is disappointing. What is up, Drive By Movies here, and you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaise.
And today we checked out the new film to hit Shudder. Even though it's no longer Halloween, we are still in the spooky mood. We are checking out Azrael.
Azrael takes place in a world where no one speaks. A devout female hunts down a young woman who has escaped her imprisonment. Recaptured by its ruthless leaders, Azrael is due to be sacrificed to pacify an ancient evil deep within the surrounding wilderness. So, James, this is E.L. Katz's third feature film, and it's also written by Simon Barrett. So this seemed like a cool kind of dream scenario almost. I know that I think recently we had talked even about E.L. Katz directing a movie, because I honestly didn't know he had done a second sophomore movie that appeared on Netflix. But his first film, sorry, I'm forgetting the name right now. What is it called? Yeah, Cheap Thrills was such like a kind of big, I felt like it was like a big movie, at least in like the cult circuit at that time. And then it just seems like he never went on to do anything else. And then you kind of saw like, Adam Wingard ascend his throne of Kong versus Godzilla. And you're all wondering, where's E.L. Katz and what's he up to? But anyways, James, what do you think of Azrael?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have E.L. Katz back because you and I have been following South by Southwest for quite some time. Like, for those who might be new to our YouTube channel, like, back when we used to start doing podcasting and anything, we'd talk about how Sundance and South by Southwest were like the films that those were originally like the places where our favorite directors like Ty West, Adam Wingard, E.L. Katz, Joe Swanberg, all their movies were getting made, and all their movies were very minimal budget wise. But nowadays we're seeing like bigger movies with big A-list actors with a first time Nepo baby director and stuff. And it was based off a short film and just got funding with a huge big actor as a lead role. Like, that's awesome. I love all these movies that are coming out. But I do miss the days where like anyone could make a movie. So it's just cool that E.L. Katz is back, because I remember Cheap Thrills was such a big deal at the time with Pat Healy and Ethan Embry, I believe it is. Ethan Embry is the co-star in that movie. And a lot of other actors in that one. Sarah Paxton, highly recommend that movie. But I know he's done a second film for Netflix, but it's cool to see him back in a horror genre, and especially with Simon Barrett, since Simon Barrett's kind of been doing his own thing. We weren't the biggest fans of Seance. I don't think we hated it, but we just didn't think it was the best thing in the world. But one thing I love so much about Simon Barrett is just trying to do something different. A lot of his scripts feel very different. None of them feel the same. He does write a lot of strong female protagonists, but just like the aspect of not having any dialogue within this movie, but still have a lot to say in it, was really cool. But it's not the best movie. A lot works for it for me, but there's also a lot of unanswered questions for it that I would have liked to have explored, essentially.
Yeah, I was sadly pretty disappointed in this movie. I felt like I came in with a lot of hype, with the names, that are attached to this movie. And it felt like, remember there was like a movie that came out, like this is probably 5 years ago. I think it's called Temple, where it was like written by Simon Barrett, but it's not really. Like, it was like a script that he started and like 8 people went on to like continue writing. But for some reason, whoever had bought that script decided to attach his name to it, when he's like, dude, I didn't even write this script really.
If you look that movie up, I know it's like written as like he's the sole writer of it, but apparently though, if you look on IMDb though and look at like the additional writing, it's like a cluster mess of different writers. Yeah,
so this just felt like that for me. I felt like it wasn't like, yeah, it's written by Simon Barrett, you know, yeah, E.L. Katz directed it, but I did feel like there were choices that they made going into this movie to kind of keep the budget maybe low. You know, obviously this film doesn't really focus really on dialogue really at all. And I think that that is a really smart move to like be able to, you know, focus on, you know, the production of the movie, let alone, you know, you don't really have to focus on recording dialogue. I'm not sure if they record dialogue on set. I'm just assuming that they probably didn't, you know, just to keep the budget kind of low and also just make it more fast, nimble to be shot. But it feels like all those kind of sacrifices that were made almost for the story and done in that scripting phase just didn't end up paying off in a way.
No, that's exactly it. Like, kind of going off of just what you said, that kind of made it frustrating at times, just because I thought there would be a whole reason of utilizing the Force. Why is everyone living there? And just that kind of just left the unanswered question of just like, why did I know there was a rapture, but there's not really a reason for this movie to not take place in a city other than just us being film lovers kind of knowing that it's just probably because it's on a strict budget.
Yeah. And it does feel like there are those aspects of this movie where they're kind of cutting corners to make sure that they could get this film done, but then it doesn't really pay off in other ways. I felt like it could have paid off in other ways. There are some really cool sequences in this movie that do feel like they paid off, but when it comes to like even the monster feels kind of generic. It just feels like something that you find in like the fourth Descent movie or something, you know, like it doesn't feel like it's the first Descent. Like it just like, okay, maybe it's this direct to video version of the Descent kind of. I just felt like nothing of the movie was really memorable in that sense, you know, like it should have like a really cool monster that's kind of distinct, and it just reminded me of something I've seen in many other movies, you know, like and the logic didn't really make sense even with these creatures. There's some creatures where they're slower than a zombie from Night of the Living Dead, and then there's other ones where they took like mescaline and are all hopped up and running like they're straight out of a Crank movie.
Right. And yeah, I totally agree with the creatures and stuff. Like they did have really creepy presence, and I did feel like the tension whenever our characters are in danger with them. But yeah, overall though, I just kind of got the vibes of that the Darth Maul looking demon in the Insidious movies. But you also saying the creatures from the Descent also is a nail. It really like hits the spot too on just like what the kind of vibe they bring to the movie. But yeah, I mean, the production design for everything's really cool. I love a lot of the set pieces, but just just a lot of it just unfortunately, even though it like feels like an original fun premise, I just say that even though it feels original, there's just nothing that really just made it stand out for me, which is disappointing. Because I think all the right pieces were there for this movie. It's just missing some kind of aspect. I'm not sure what could have made that better. That's why I don't write. That's why I review movies, I guess, instead of writing them myself. But, we know what Simon Barrett's capable of. And he's also even said it, I think, with The Guest. I think he was working on that script originally. And then when Adam Wingard got high one day and said he wanted to make a Terminator meets Halloween-esque movie, Simon Barrett was like, well, I already have a script that I'm working on that I can retool to work it out for this. So this movie kind of feels like maybe it was the plot of Temple, or maybe this is the original script for Temple, but just like got retooled for whatever Temple turned out to be. I never saw that movie, so I can't comment on it. But from what I hear, it's absolutely garbage. And this movie isn't garbage. It's but just actually, I'd say from how good some of the movies I've seen on Shudder this year, and just this year in general, I think I just went in a little overhyped with this movie because it's got a lot of great pieces with starring Samara Weaving, and then it's got a cool premise that, you just never would expect. And I do love the ending, but I'd say just overall, the final 30 minutes are awesome, but could have been narrowed down into an awesome short film versus just the 90 to 100 minute movie we got. I think this movie is a little under 90 minutes, but it still kind of felt long to me.
I think it's 70 minutes. I felt like it was 70 minutes.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that though. It didn't feel like super short. I felt like it felt like a normal 90-minute movie, but I know it is shorter. Maybe not 70, maybe it's 80, but it still was shorter. But yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think Shudder released a ton of great movies this year, and they didn't release two of the best films, but it felt like the same DNA where like they were releasing great movies, and this was not one of them this year. I know this did go to theaters, short run, I think a couple weeks, and then was immediate. It seems like it was on Shudder a month later. So yeah, I think it just feels like the budget was a huge constraint here. They definitely tried to work around it in the writing phase, but nothing about it felt totally original for me. It felt like all like a hodgepodge of stuff I've seen before, and it was kind of disappointing in that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I can't really like fault like anyone or pinpoint what's wrong with it. It's just a matter of taste buds, I guess you can say. And just sadly, it doesn't sound like it was the most fulfilling meal for either of us when, you know, we went in excited. It's like we went to our favorite restaurant. We decided to try something new and just like, let's just, as dorky as it sounds, but we should have got what we normally would have ordered, I guess you could say. As terrible as that sounds, we're not saying like, oh, we want another Marvel movie. We want what we know we're going to like, because that's absolutely not the case. It's just this sounded fresh and original, but we just didn't get the vibe for it. It just didn't work for us. Especially, you know, we didn't review Oddity, but when a movie like that came out the same month on Shudder, that's one of my favorites of the year, honestly, and one of the creepiest movies. But, you know, not to say that this movie isn't worth checking out. I really love a lot of the gore effects, and, you know, without spoiling the ending, I thought the ending was pretty metal as hell and unexpected, but it was a little too unexpected, but still that was a fun part.
Definitely. And I will say, I hope that Samara Weaving can finally ascend to not just only being in horror movies. It feels like she's made a career out of it at this point, but it does seem like she's such a great actress. She really gives it all and everything. And it seems like at one point, maybe someone will notice and she can ascend it to the mainstream.
Yeah, outside of horror films, like, you know, I always hear people say how much she looks like Margot Robbie. And, you know, she was fun in her like 2 scenes in what's that movie from Damien Chazelle that we checked out?
Oh, yeah.
Babylon. That was the movie. But just she has one short sequence of just like, and she's replaced by Margot Robbie as an actress in Hollywood. So, you know, it's just like we get her in horror films or we get her in a movie where they're claiming like she looks like Margot Robbie and Margot Robbie replaces her. So, you know, kind of sad. But yeah, she's still fantastic in this movie. And despite her not being a scream queen in this movie, different kind of movie, like she is a cool action hero as well. And, you know, took her seriously. But, you know, are we being a little too harsh on this movie? Let us know in the comments below. Great way to help support the show. Just watch it on Shudder and let us know what you thought about it in the comments down below.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, be sure to catch all our social media links down below for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and our own personal letterbox accounts. That'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video.